Hello, and welcome back on to the third portion of the work groups. We'll talk about different types of work teams. All right. We'll start up here, just kind of different types of teams that could exist. You could have production teams, which are employees that produce output. Management teams are teams that work together to coordinate workers to ensure the production occurs. Service teams, teams that work together to attend to the needs of customers, right? Um, Project teams, which carry out a specific project, and sometimes project teams are temporary. They come together, they carry out the project, and they disband, right? And then advisory teams that look at various that give input to other groups about how they're functioning. How about that? All right, so we can see a table here with some of the examples of what these different types of teams would do. One type of team is a self-managed work team, and self-managed work teams are important, are interesting. A self-managed work team is one where the responsibilities for monitoring, controlling the processes, the product, assigning tasks is all put on the work team. Um, it sometimes works well, okay? And this is often what group projects are, that you're put into a group and you as a group are responsible for monitoring performance, controlling the process, etc. And sometimes I get people that come to me and they tell me about, and it's a self-managed work team. It's not me. You have a person that's not pulling their weight. That's part of the learning process. Okay, part of the learning process is the material that you're covering in the group project, but oftentimes the skill that I'm hoping that you'll achieve is the ability to work as a member of a group. There will always be freeloaders. Always. Your job is to figure out how to work with them, because they don't just go away just because you left the university. No. Okay. And so what will happen is self-managed work teams can increase autonomy, right? Well, they do increase autonomy, but this increased autonomy can increase empowerment. Those work teams that have, in fact, increased autonomy leading to empowerment have better performance and better attitudes coming out of it. But it doesn't always work, as I said. Three dimensions of work team effectiveness. In other words, you've got a work team and you want to evaluate, was that an effective team? Did they work together effectively? And so you look at these three dimensions of effectiveness in order to evaluate the entire. This word effectiveness is composed of team performance, attitudes, and withdrawal behaviors. And so if you look at these three categories or dimensions together, you can ask the question, so was this an effective team? Teamwork revolves, okay, what makes for an effective team? Communication, coordination, feedback, cohesion. So things that might, look at this, factors that might influence whether or not a work team will be effective. Okay, so there's components out there that predict effectiveness. Oh, there you go, predictors of work team effectiveness. And so some of the predictors of work team effectiveness comes from the organizations themselves, but some come from the actual individual members. Some combinations of people work well together and some combinations of people do not work well together. Okay? So group composition can be incredibly important. Teams that they have a high variability on extroversion. I like that. That is, if a team has some people that are introverted and some people that are extroverted and a whole bunch of, see, if everybody's extroverted, then everybody's talking over each other, and everybody's introverted, nobody says anything. So you need a combination of these two together. You want a low variability on conscientiousness. In fact, you want everybody to be conscientious. All right, really, yeah, if you want effective teamwork. And so different. Look at that. When one team member thinks another one needs help, oh, I like that backup behavior. The personalities of the helper and the person needing help play an important role. Um, Clearly, oh, what a surprise! Group composition. This is team performance improves when members have high cognitive ability. Oh, so does your entire factory, right? We've talked about that, okay? But favorable personality traits. This is silly. Team performance. No, performance at every single level with groups of people. Whether, yeah. This is interesting though. Demographic diversity doesn't seem to be related to team effectiveness, but if you have diversity related to background, education, expertise, things like this, then this kind of demographic diversity does predict effectiveness of the team. The newer version of teams are virtual teams. Clearly, there's some benefit for companies to be doing virtual teams. You can bring together experts in multiple areas that might not be living in the same cities. Okay, and so you find work in different cities or countries that communicate usually email, fax, web pages, video conferencing, things of this nature. Many companies are employing virtual teams. They do have major advantages. You most certainly can bring together people that could never have otherwise gotten together. You don't have to worry about weather problems, time zone issues go away. So I don't know. I've been involved with some virtual team work, and I'll tell you, one of the things that is interesting is the very definition: use computer-mediated communication. They're geographically dispersed. Well, I found personally, when I do any kind of virtual teamwork, that there's such a learning curve for how to make the technology work the way you want it to work. I guess if you did worked on a virtual work team for a long period of time, then it would be fine. But if you're doing an ad hoc situation where you just want to bring a group together for just a short amount of time, it becomes very difficult. Just try to explain to your colleagues how to use, the edit functions on a virtual document or something. Oh, you have to check it out, and then you make your edits, and then you check it back in. And as long as it's checked out to you, nobody else on the team can work on it. And the problem is some dumbass will check it out and not check it back in, and nobody can do anything. All right? So technology is technology. Maybe, I guess, as the millennials take over the workforce, maybe the technology won't be quite a thing. However, on virtual work teams, there is a tipping point. If you have 90% of the communication via computer, you start to lose effectiveness. You need to have at least some face-to-face time to enhance the effectiveness of a virtual team, even if it's only 10%. I guess no matter how much we like to think we're technologically sophisticated, we're still social creatures at heart. Yeah, right now, most of the work that has been done most virtual teams are done in knowledge-intensive workers, because that's who does virtual teams. So it would be interesting to see if you could use virtual teams in other industries, other skill levels, and things of this nature. But at this point, there's not a lot of work, because it's really a particular employment sector that uses this model. How do we select members for teams? Should we just go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, put you on there? Don't you know? It's my little poem for the day. Well, it turns out that if you take an existing group and you ask them, do you want this person to be a member of your team? Seems to be a pretty effective way to decide who to put on the team, okay? But clearly using general mental ability and certain personality traits can greatly improve performance. If you have just one, look at this under my head, just one member of a team who is low on something, on a personality trait or something, you can create tension and whatnot that can take away from the entire group's performance. So clearly you got to be careful who you put on the team. There have been a variety of instruments that have been created that allow you to figure out who would be good to be on a team. The teamwork test, situational judgment test, and identifies the knowledge, skills, and knowledge, skills, attitudes, and other. That was it. That effectively predict teamwork. Team role test, The team role experience and orientation. Is that what it said? Team role experience and orientation test. Yeah, these are all interesting. But I'm wondering, is it or would it be justifiable to take these devices and put them at the beginning, not at the selection of who goes on a work team, but at the beginning to figure out who you hire in the first place? Because who wants to hire somebody that's not a team player, right? And maybe these tests would allow us to identify what that means to be a team player. Multi-team systems are interesting, and again, this is often in highly technical areas. But when you have a much larger task that you can break down into sub goals and sub components. So I don't know, you want to build a rocket. So you have one team that's working on the propulsion system, and one team that's working on the what's another system on it? Rocket, propulsion, repulsion, navigation. Ha! Propulsion and running the navigation systems and etc. And so individual teams which are working together to create a larger system. Clearly teamwork is moving forward. Technology is becoming so sophisticated nowadays. To be honest, for so much of technology that exists, there is no one human being that even understands some of this stuff. You couldn't even find any individual human that could understand the entire thing, because any one product is in fact, any one product is in fact composed of so many components that nobody is an expert in everything, right? Nobody could possibly know every single thing there is about every single component in this thing. So work teams inevitably, as complexity increases, and it is, we're going to need to do this. More virtual teams, of course. I can see some real advantages. I know for a fact one of the major stumbling problems employers have with recruiting good applicants is applicants are stuck by family commitments. Oh, I would love to come to work for your company, but I can't leave this area because I have family here. Well, all of a sudden the I have family here is all of a sudden less important once we incorporate more virtual teamwork. Selection of employees for teams will become more sophisticated. Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, they often use like the Myers-Briggs type in MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator to indicate who will and will not work well together. All right, so we've got topic 12 done, and we'll take a break for now, and perhaps we'll come back to 13 tomorrow.